Guten Tag, and welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, Bob Stewart over there. Bob, how you doing today?
I know that one because
You
I
do?
took German as a sophomore in high school, Chad.
Why?
Well, because back in those days, and I don't know what it's like today, but back in those days, you had to have 2 years of a foreign language in order to qualify to go to, 4-year university here in the United States, right? And
Okay.
so I'll speak to you in very simple terms since I know you're Canadian. And you guys call it university. But to go to a 4-year college here in the US, you got to have 2 years of a foreign language. And so my school had 3 options: German, French, and Spanish.
Sure.
And I picked German for a very strategic reason that had
Hot
nothing to
teacher?
do with German. Almost. You're close. You're very close. It was the teacher, but the teacher of the German class was the head coach of the basketball team. And so I thought, I want to get in good with the head coach of the basketball team, Terry Pendleton, so I'm going to take German.
But I think I heard you only said 1 year of German.
Well, in a sign of the ultimate backfire, my family then moved my sophomore year of high school after my sophomore year. And of course, the school we moved to had 2 options for a foreign language: French or Spanish, the 2 other languages that I could have picked at my first high school, but I didn't. And so then I had to do 2 years of Spanish as a junior and a senior. So 1 year of, so now I know 2 ways to say hello: Spanish and German.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Now you know Bob Stewart's whole history.
Yeah, that's all my foreign language history right there, wrapped up in a little 3-minute summary.
Okay, perfect. Bob, I got to tell you a story.
Okay.
And it's the theme for this episode.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm on the pickleball court. I know you want to laugh and make fun about it. Okay, so I'm on the pickleball court.
I'm not laughing. I was playing pickleball when I was in 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade.
Okay. All right. So I'm there, and there's this other couple that I found out were from my hometown. I mean, not only from my hometown, the guy went to my high school. Not only did the guy go to my high school, he went to my high school, and he was just 2 years older than me. And his younger brother, I knew who that was. And my best friend's older brothers all know who he is. So I knew this guy from high school. So we were reconnecting.
Okay.
Well, I have asked him what him and his wife do, and they're both dentists. I told them jokingly, "Oh, you're dentist? No wonder I don't like you. I don't like dentists, Bob Stewart." And he said, "Why don't you like?"
You're an anti-dentite.
Anti, right? And he said, "Why don't you like dentists?" And I said, "Because when I was a kid."
You probably think they should have their own schools, don't you?
Dentists?
Anti-dentite.
They should just.
This is a whole Seinfeld episode. You clearly haven't seen this one, but it's a whole Seinfeld episode where he hates dentists. But keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
And I hate dentists. And I was he said, "Why do you hate dentists?" I told him this story. When I was younger, I went to my dentist, and my dentist was mean. He was short. He was like 4 foot something and angry about being short, whatever. He was angry, right? And the first thing he would do when you walked in was he would check all your teeth before you even got in the chair. And if one was loose, Bob, he just grabbed it and yanked it out of your mouth. Like just yanked it, right? And it hurt. And I hated going to the dentist. And one day I was having a cavity filled when I was a kid. And halfway through the cavity work, he had to get run over to another patient, and he dealt with that patient, and he came back to me, and he went to finish the cavity, and the Novocaine had worn off. Right. And I'm screaming, like as a kid, screaming, like this hurts. And his answer was, "Quiet down, hold still. We're almost done." Right. So to me, complete fear of dentists instilled in me from a young age. He was also my orthodontist. So I had braces when I was younger and cranking them and twist like nightmares about this guy. And I'm telling this story to the guy. And I said, there isn't a day that goes by I probably don't curse the name Dr. Melvin A.K. That was my dentist. And he says, that was my dentist. And he inspired me to become a dentist. And I was like, "Why? Because you want to be mean to children?" And he gave me
the opposite.
Yeah, he gave me his story. He said, we didn't have a lot of money at the time. And when we would go into the dentist office, he would yank out a tooth that was loose. So he didn't have to charge us for it. He didn't have to process it through insurance. We didn't have to pay for that service. He was being helpful. Meanwhile, I took it as he was just mean and yanking teeth out of my mouth, right? he told me how tender he actually was with him and all this stuff. And he remembered the good of this dentist enough to be inspired to grow up and become a dentist. Me, I remembered the evil of this dentist so much, Bob, that for years I didn't go to a dentist. Like there were 15 plus years consecutive in my life where there was never a visit to a dentist until Nita made me go back to one again. And I can't walk in there now without the gas, right? Like I'm just like paranoid when I walk in there. And it was amazing the perspective that came from one dentist looking evil to me and looking like a saint to him.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, right. I am getting this story for a reason, that the fact that he had the same dentist as me, we both looked at it. So we needed to talk about perspective and how important it is, because how many times do we say something's horrible and someone else says it's amazing? How many times have you watched a movie that you said that sucked and someone else said that was fantastic, or vice versa? How many times have you eaten at a restaurant that you said that was horrible and someone else had said that place is amazing, it's our favorite, vice versa? I wanted to talk perspective today, Bob. So I did some work since this happened. It was a few days ago, and I put together a list for us of the 7 ways to shift our perspective, because sometimes it's just us looking at something the wrong way. Have you ever found yourself in that situation where someone told you it was awesome and you said it sucked, or vice versa, because your perspective was just different?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's making me think, and gosh, I think it was Sahil Bloom, who's an author, entrepreneur. He was recently joined one of our kind of company all hands meetings and was a presenter on it. He wrote a book called The 5 Types of Wealth. But I think it was him that was talking, Chad, about this idea that your biggest gripes, like be careful that your biggest gripes don't become something that you recently were praying for, essentially, right? Like this idea that there was a time in our life and we're like, wish things would be a certain way. And then we get to that place where things are that way. And we're like, oh, I'm so friggin' busy. And, but it's like, it's the thing you wished for, right? So when your perspective was down here going, man, I don't have anything and I want all the stuff that being successful entails, right? And that's your perspective. Like, I want to be there. And then you get there and your perspective is like, oh my God, there's just so much. What if in that, instead of being in there's just so much, your perspective was like, wow, look how thankful look where I used to be down there, right? So, yeah, I mean, gosh, I think that perspective is, I mean, really potentially like the seed of happiness or discontent is like, what is that perspective you're taking on that thing? And I think almost any of us in any given situation could take a perspective that was, leaned the bad way. Chad's watching me like literally lean in my seat back and forth here, and you're leaning with me, which is funny. Like when I leaned that way, you leaned that way. But like most of us could probably in a similar scenario, use perspective to have a totally different outcome.
Absolutely. And doesn't it change so much in hindsight, right? That in the moment this sucked, and then we look back and realize, wait a minute, that was actually the transformative moment that made everything then possible, or whatever that is. I do not believe there is good and bad, right? There's evil, yes, okay, but good and bad is perspective. Because again, I'll have a meal for dinner tonight. You'll have the same meal for dinner tonight. I'll say it was good because it was healthy. You'll say it was bad because it was bland and boring, whatever that's going to be, right? There is no good and bad in that way to me. It's perspective of how we look at things. I talk about that in one of the ebooks I wrote, actually. But we want to talk about the 7 ways to shift your perspective as we go through this call. And Bob, number 1 is before you react, step back. Okay, before you react, step back. Because when you're stuck in the moment, problems feel massive, right? They feel gigantic. If you can step back and get some distance from it to be able to look at it, oftentimes that same issue shrinks, right? I mean, if you put a match really close to your eye, it looks like everything in the world is on fire. If you hold that match at arm's length from you, you've got this little match that you could just go and blow out. The problem doesn't become as big. So leaders who zoom out before making decisions under pressure are able to get a better perspective so that they can find the right perspective to have. What are your thoughts on step one?
This helps me with my children a lot, like a lot, right? Just the pause. but like I've got my Chase, my wife and I's oldest boy, he's 9, and he such a loving little guy. Like he's just loving. So when there's something like when he's not being that kid, right? Like I got to step back and go, wait a minute, like what's going on around the outside, right? Like there's this one thing, right, where he's snappy at me because I want him to do the thing, right? But like, why is he being snappy? And I got to zoom out and get, more of the story, basically, right? Yeah. So it's the pause, because I could just be like, Chase, hey, right? Which is what a lot of parents do. They don't look. Having been raised by a type A personality who was a single mom, who had a lot going on, I know that there wasn't like, look, I love my mom. I don't know that she was zooming out a lot because there was 4 of us and she was always, always reacting to something, and right. And so it does take some time to do that, even if it's 15 or seconds or 10 seconds or a minute, right? When you've got 4 kids running around, you don't get that chance to zoom. And so I don't know. I don't want to act like I'm awesome at it all the time with my boys, but man, when I can do it, I generally have a better perspective on, their challenge, their issue, their reason why they're being, in my head, a bad kid or naughty or whatever, right? Generally that perspective, that zoom, that changes things.
Okay. And Harvard did a study, right? In emotional intelligence. I mean, it's the word of like the decade, emotional intelligence, or the term, right? That leaders who pause before reacting are 25% more effective in conflict resolution. Right. So take a step back, folks. Give yourself a chance to be better at it. And I want to share this quote. I found some quotes that worked with some of these ideas. And I'm sharing this one specifically, Bob, because I'm going to predict the future. I think we're going to be interviewing a guy soon who's going to be telling us that the guy who I attribute this quote to is actually one of his mentors.
Okay.
Okay. Because I know that Mick Hunt is going to tell us that Les Brown is one of his mentors when we finally air that episode. And Les said, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. And I just think that's a really good way to look at this, folks. You've got to step back to be able to see what's going on. All right, Bob, I sent you my list. You want to take number 2?
Sure. Assume positive intent. I like this one. And maybe it's because that's my default generally, but not always, right? And so when I do go into like, I don't know, I'll call it they're trying to screw me mode or something. It's just like they're trying to screw us, right? Sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, wait a minute, maybe they're not trying to screw us. Maybe they just made an honest mistake, right? Let's call them and find out. So assuming positive intent, I think, can help a lot. Now you might call them to find out and you realize, nope, they weren't trying to screw us, right? But my perspective can absolutely be changed if I don't always assume that everybody's out to get me or try to get one over on me.
Yeah, and think about it. How many times have you walked by somebody and you said hello and they didn't respond and you assume, oh, they're a jerk, right? Or you go to one of those big events that we go to where there's hundreds and thousands of people and someone doesn't hear you when you say, hey, and you call to them or something and jerk, right? Or you wave to somebody that you were walking and they were driving by and you just think, hey, jerk. What if you assumed positive intent? Completely change your perspective and say, oh, Bob didn't hear me, or, oh, he was on the phone, or, oh, he was in a conversation with someone else. I shouldn't have interrupted.
I saw last night, I was watching the end of the Lakers game, and the Lakers won their game last night, and LeBron was walking off the court one way, and I don't even know Austin Reeves was in the middle, and then you had Luka Doncic in the back, and Luka Doncic.
These are all basketball players for the Lakers?
Yeah. There's like the 3 best players on the Lakers, right? And, one of them is arguably a top 3 or 4 player of all time that I just named, and the other one could be. Anyways, you're so funny. But so one of the guys, like Luka Doncic, put his hand out for Austin Reeves to give him a high five. And this was all on camera, kind of in the background of this interview that was happening. And Austin Reeves was focused on LeBron James. And so he went that way. And Luka just kind of stood there. And he could have, like, this is on TV. And he doesn't know he's on TV, I don't think. And he might know, if he's super aware. And he could have, gotten to like, well, screw him type of thing. But he realized what had happened. Oh, he was distracted, right? And his perspective just allowed him to kind of laugh it off. And it was this very kind of jovial interaction in the back that had Luka had a different perspective there, could have been him like just even, going whatever, right? And then all of a sudden it's all on the news and there's memes about it tonight. And right. So I think he had a perspective of like, oh, it was, he assumed his teammate is going to, would have given him 5 if he'd have seen it, right?
Right. That's a great point, folks. Assume positive intent. It's going to change your perspective in any situation. All right. This one, I think a lot of people have heard this one from many different sources in many different ways, yet it absolutely belongs on our list. It's turn have to into get to. Right? So take have to and turn it into get to. Like, I have to go to the dentist is going to have me walking in with a negative attitude to I get to go to the dentist. How many people wish they could have somebody who would take that pain away or be able to do this and that with their, right? It's your mindset's completely going to change. I have to go to that meeting. If that's our thought, or I have to be at this call, or I have to listen to this or I have to read this book, how many times do we go into it grumbling? Whereas I get to read this book that was recommended to me. I can't wait to find the lessons in it. Or I get to go to this meeting because, boy, I can't wait to hear what we're going to discuss or what's going to come up or the conversation. Bob, just changing the have to get to will completely change our perspective.
This is a gratitude exercise more than anything, right? Like, to me, this is all about gratitude. And Chad, look, we've done entire episodes about gratitude, and we've talked about there's studies out there that show that people that regularly practice gratitude sleep better, and they've got higher levels of happiness, and the better, like literally better body chemistry, like lower levels of cortisol and different things. So, I mean, this is kind of a daily approach to practicing gratitude is reframing the things that, maybe you don't love them, but hey, guess what? Like, you have a job. Guess what? Right? You get to be a part of that thing. Guess what? Your boss wanted you, in that group because he thinks you can push it forward. Right? So yeah, get to. I don't know. I feel like I get to do a lot of awesome things that maybe at a different time in life I would have thought, oh, I got to go do that. Right?
Yeah, and I mean it's a simple thing, and it's. I sit here every week and I say I get to record an episode of Win Make Give. Right? There are probably podcasts out there where the hosts are, I have to record another episode, right? When you have that, nobody wants to listen. I get to, who knows what we're going to learn from each other, what we're going to learn from the guests we bring on, who we're going to impact by sharing something. Folks, take your have tos, make them get to. I have to spend time with my kids tonight, right? I have to take care of my kids while my partner's away or whatever. No, I get to spend that one-on-one time with my kids. Now it becomes a completely changed perspective when it comes into it. Bob, why don't you take number 4 for us?
I like this one. I do this one a lot. And if I can just do number 1, which is just that idea of kind of zooming out or pausing, right? A lot of times in my pause, my brain goes to using time travel.
Okay.
My brain, I do this, and this was a piece of advice somebody gave. I've seen this before. We've all seen this, right? Well, is that thing that you're you have your attention pointed at something and you have a perspective on it, and will your perspective be the same on that thing in 5 minutes? Will this perspective be the same in 5 days? What about in 5 months? What about in 5 years? And generally this is around something where you're frustrated, right? And it's so easy to tie these things back when you're raising kids and you're actively raising children, Chad, right? It's so easy to all these lessons just tie back. But it's we have a new car in the garage. One of the kids just smoked it with the basketball yesterday, and it didn't really do anything to it, right? Except for just, and so in that moment, I'm like, pause, and I'm like, all right. And my brain goes there a lot. I'm like, will this matter in 5 minutes? Yep, I'm still going to be pissed. Will this matter in 5 days? No, right? And like it's generally very quickly you can get to that place. Sometimes it will still matter in 5 days, but you're like, yeah, but will this matter in 5 months? No. Okay, then I should still be a little bit concerned about it right now, but not as concerned as I probably was out of the gates when I saw them smash their ball into the new car, right?
That's a great point because, Bob, I'm sitting here and I know you're dealing with 7 and 9, I believe is the ages currently, right? 7 and 9.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And mine's 24, right? And if I attempt to think back to when she was 7 or 9, there are very few things I can remember that
Mattered
are an
enough
issue.
that
Right.
mattered
And
to
now I should
still
still be upset about
yeah.
something that happened when she was 7 and locked herself in the bathroom. And I had to figure out how to dismantle the doorknob to be able to actually get her out of it. It's like, now it's just a funny story. It's not something that matters. Time travel is an excellent one.
Funny.
You're right. You got to pause first, though.
When I first started doing this, my wife would she would walk, like my wife has the most intimate relationship with me and has the most intimate perspective on watching the thoughts in my head, right? And so there was a time when I started doing this where we would be arguing about something, and then all of a sudden she would see me doing it in my head and she would be like, what are you doing? Like, what are you thinking about right now? And I would just walk her through it. I'm like, well, and it would calm me almost every time, right? I'm like calmed down, and I'm somebody that's excitable, and so that process of calming me down, she would watch it happening, and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" Now she doesn't do that anymore because she knows what I'm doing. I'm going through like, all right, this doesn't matter in a week, but like if you were somebody close to me and saw me in an elevated, in a position where my emotions were elevated, you might be able to see it now that I've told you that, right? Like literally the thoughts going through my head of like, what will this, does this matter in a week? Sometimes, by the way, it does. Like sometimes you're like, yep, and in a year, and in 10 years, right? But 99 times out of 100, it doesn't, none of that stuff matters in a month.
We've all heard it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Yeah. And it's all small stuff, right?
Exactly.
But I'll remember, right? I mean, we joke about it now. There was a comment I made on a stage at Built How that you received multiple text messages about a joke that was being made on stage, and you went ballistic, right? I mean, I got the angriest text I've ever received from anybody, probably from you. And then a week later, when we were together again for the first, I mean, it was a joke, right? It was, we laughed about it. Folks, it's, can you stop yourself? That's the challenge. Can you take that pause that number 1 was to allow number 4 here, use time travel? All right. 5, Bob, is swap seats. And we've all heard this. Our parents have told it, right? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes or something like that. We've heard this many, many times. But you should put yourself in someone else's shoes sometimes, whether it's your kid in your situation, a client, right? The person you're arguing with, that person on the other end of the phone from Comcast, whatever it is. Empathy doesn't mean you have to agree, right? It just means that there's going to be the effort of understanding where they're coming from.
I like that a lot. Like, I think that it's, again, such a fascinating watching your kids like just learn how to think, how to be, coming into their own. And I was having a conversation recently with our youngest Carter about like the concept of empathy, and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And I was asking him to do it. And I said, well, put yourself in their shoes. And he immediately was like, well, if I was them, I would have done that. I'm like, no, that's what you would do, Carter. Like, I get it. Right. But like, put yourself so I've actually been like working, especially him. Chase is a naturally empathetic human. He can easily put himself into other people's. I can even early, he's 9. He can like voice things like, well, maybe they're feeling this way, or maybe because their parents this, or Minnie's just like, I don't understand why everybody doesn't have the same brain I have, and if like, they're, as far as he's concerned, they're dumb, and so
I like that one better.
Right? I think most of us kind of default to
I
that.
like Carter better.
But gosh, it's fascinating to even watch somebody learning how to become empathetic, right? But I think, look, it's definitely a different perspective. If we're not looking from our own perspective, we're looking for someone else's. Like, this is like kind of the definition of shifting your perspective is empathy.
Okay, Bob, take us into number 6, because it's almost the opposite of swapping seats with somebody. Take us into number 6 and discuss this one.
I mean, the number 6 is just ask for perspective from others,
Yeah.
right? Like literally inviting people in to give you a different voice or perspective on that thing. Bill Gates said we all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. Like employees in your world that are, there's a Gallup poll out there that found that employees who receive regular feedback are more likely to be engaged in their work. So just, many people, especially if they see you as being somebody successful, are not going to offer up their advice to you. Right. If you like you're, in your area, like as a business leader, you're seen as being someone successful. Very, very few people will offer you unsolicited advice. Now you need to go solicit it, right?
Yes.
Go ask for that advice from people. They'll give it to you. Every person will give you their opinion or their advice, but very few people, especially if they don't see themselves being like kind of on your level, are going to offer you unsolicited advice. But we need it.
Yeah, you're right, because it gives us a different perspective without having to imagine what they're thinking or what we would think if we were in their shoes, their situation. This is flat out asking.
Chad, I mean, look, you're a coach, right? You coach people, like they literally come to you for this. I mean, this is like one of the primary reasons that they're coming to you, is helping to get a different perspective from a voice that they trust, right? That they believe will be a truth teller to them. That maybe can see their blind spots. By the way, I don't know if you've probably done this, but go to ChatGPT and prompt it to, based on what it knows about you, to give you some of your blind spots and what you might be able to do to work on them. I just did that recently, and I'm like, well, screw you, ChatGPT. Think you know so fucking much about me? Yeah, it was spot on.
Now, folks, you can't ask these prompts. We've dropped a few. I've put a few on Facebook, and you see them go. You can't drop these prompts into ChatGPT if you don't use it, right? It's got to know you a little. It's got to see how you engage. It's got to see your social media stuff or what's on the internet about you that it can go find to be able to bring that stuff. But yes, it is, Bob, a great voice to invite in to get a different perspective. ChatGPT can be that, or any of the AIs that are out there. All right, we have one more. Yet we're always going to do this, and we're going to recap, folks. So 7 ways to shift your perspective. 1, we said step back before you react. Right. Number 2 was assume a positive intent. Number 3 was take your have to and make it a get to. Number 4 was time traveling. Number 5 was swapping seats with people. Number 6 was invite a different voice to help you. And number 7, Bob, reset your defaults. And what I mean by that, when I was doing the research, is most people will default negatively, right? We default to fear. We default to judgment. We default to comparing ourselves to other people. What would happen, Bob, if you defaulted to being curious? What would happen if you defaulted to, well, everything's funny? It's all humorous to me. What if you defaulted to believing in others, whatever it would be? You can reprogram your mindset, which will change your perspective on everything. Wayne Dwyer was quoted and always known for, right? Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Okay. So think about what's the filter. If you're wearing blue glasses, everything looks blue. What if you took those off and put on yellow glasses? Now everything looks yellow. What if you took those off and put on green glasses? Everything looks green. You can't do it that easy in your brain to just put in a different color, but you could work on changing fear being the filter you see things through, or comparison being this thing you see your filter through, and change it to support, belief, humor, curiosity, because that'll bring you a completely different perspective.
Chad, I don't know if I didn't do this on purpose. Well, I guess I did do this on purpose. I didn't know what I was doing. Like as a kid, I moved around a lot, and I can remember at some point trying to, win friends through like comparison. I wanted to let them know like I was a cool kid and my family could do this. And half the time I was lying and making shit up about it. Right. I just wanted to fit in.
Yep.
And I can remember when we, one of the moves we made and coming into this new school. And I remember like and I don't even know why. I just decided like I want to be somebody that's super curious about other people. Like I was going to make friends by making people feel like I had a really deep interest in them. And I was going to ask them lots of questions. And like, that was a massively better way to like it just, to this day, if I'm on an airplane with somebody, I can sit next to them and ask them questions for 3.5 hours and they'll never ask me one thing. And they'll walk out of there thinking this guy sat on the plane next to was amazing. Right. Like that, you can absolutely change your perspective by changing kind of your defaults. I'd say, years ago, I had a different default when I would meet somebody than I do today.
Yeah, you were through comparison and outdoing, thinking that would bring the result. And now you've got a filter of curiosity. Folks, if you hear nothing in today's episode, it's if Bob Stewart's sitting beside you on a flight, make sure you have headphones.
Well, 50% of the time that's true. The other 50% of the time I'll be on my headphones. I don't want to hear a dang word out of you. I'm in my introvert stage.
There you go. Folks, it's going to happen. We hope this has helped you change your perspective or gives you a tip for you, your partner, your kids to change perspective in certain situations. There's someone out there who needs to change their perspective. Please share this episode with them. Until our next one, as always, do good.